Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unlocking what I'm calling the 2026 labor and macro paradox. We're going to start right in the trenches of the modern job hunt. The stuff everyone is feeling right now, and then zoom all the way out to the huge global macroeconomic shifts that are actually driving it. Look, if you've been trying to figure out where this multi-trillion-dollar AI build-out is actually taking us, well, you already know things look a little contradictory right now. Take this number, for instance, 2.7 years. That is the average amount of experience required to get a job that is explicitly labeled as entry-level today. I mean, think about that. That is nearly 3 years of your life just to get to the starting line. If that sounds completely broken to you, don't worry, you aren't crazy. The whole foundational concept of that first rung on the career ladder, it's fundamentally shifted right beneath our feet. So what does entry-level even mean in 2026? To really understand why this massive barrier to entry exists, we can't just point fingers at HR departments. We've actually got to follow the money, follow the algorithms, and really dig into the massive macroeconomic shifts that are rewiring the entire workforce. To quantify just how bizarre the situation has gotten, there's a massive 2026 report from Standout CV where they analyzed nearly 50,000 job postings. And what they found is just wild. A staggering 51.3% of entry-level job listings now require prior working experience. Over half. Basically, over half of the roles meant for beginners are functionally demanding that you already not be a beginner. It's wild. And honestly, the data gets even more extreme when you look at certain fields. For example, if you want to be a social worker or a paralegal, over 61% of entry-level listings demand prior experience. But it actually gets worse for the tech industry. Employers are literally asking a junior web developer to have over 4 years of experience just to qualify for an entry-level role. You are essentially being asked to be a mid-level professional, but, for beginner compensation. It's a huge paradox. So why exactly does this barrier exist? Let's get into part 1, AI and the labor divide. Okay, so recent Federal Advisory Council meeting notes reveal a labor market that is just deeply, deeply divided right now. It's like two completely different worlds. If you're in the skilled trades, maybe construction or healthcare, employers are absolutely desperate for you. They literally cannot find enough workers. But on the flip side, if you're a recent college grad looking for white-collar, administrative, or tech work, that market has significantly softened. In fact, the Federal Reserve explicitly refers to our current corporate environment as a low-hire, low-fire dynamic. Basically, employee retention is super high right now because workers are really favoring stability, so voluntary turnover has completely plummeted. And because of that, companies are choosing to just backfill their essential roles rather than expanding their headcounts. They're choosing to operate leaner by design. So here is the really crucial point. AI is stepping in and doing exactly the kind of work that entry-level grads used to do. It is absorbing all those routine, analytical, and administrative tasks. And because those specific tasks historically supported junior roles, companies have just shrunk their entry-level programs. The true, literal entry-level work is just being automated away, which means the new entry-level actually requires mid-level management skills. But hey, before we get too gloomy about the corporate hiring market, this exact same technology is building into something surprisingly optimistic. Which brings us to part 2, the solopreneur boom. Because outside of that traditional corporate structure, this tech is empowering a whole new wave of workers. According to data from Stripe Economics, we are witnessing a massive structural surge in U.S. business formation. But here's the catch. It is not your traditional startups. We're seeing the explosive rise of the solopreneur. People are out there leveraging AI tools to fill in their own capability gaps, whether that's, coding, copywriting, or data analysis, so they can launch and scale real businesses without needing to hire a full team. There's this fascinating experiment from the National Bureau of Economic Research that highlights exactly why this matters so much. They found that giving participants access to an AI assistant actually closed a staggering 2/3 of the performance gap between low and high education workers. AI is acting as this incredible great equalizer. So if individuals are pivoting to solopreneurship to close the skills gap, what exactly are the massive corporations doing with all their cash? Well, let's look at part 3, the massive AI build-out. Unsurprisingly, corporations are spending staggering amounts of money. We're currently seeing a 70% annual deflation rate in GPT-4 equivalent performance costs. I mean, just think about that for a second. The cost for high-level AI capabilities is just dropping straight through the floor, and this incredible ease of switching between models means big tech firms are really struggling to build those traditional pricing modes, so they're passing all these deflationary gains directly to the users. Right now, we're watching two competing paths of AI development really battle it out. On one hand, you've got these massive CapEx-heavy frontier models that require literally billions of dollars in cloud data centers just to run. But on the other hand, you have these rapidly improving small edge models. Research actually shows that these smaller models are hitting the exact same academic reasoning benchmarks with 142 times fewer parameters than they needed just 2 years ago. That means these hyper-efficient models can run locally, right on your phone or your laptop, which is threatening to completely upend the massive cloud computing empires of big tech. And because of this rapid shift, AI financial metrics are definitely flashing some warning signs. We've seen a 90% collapse in token prices, even as total corporate spending on AI has basically doubled. Bloomberg and Alliance point out this glaring 46% gap between what companies are investing in AI infrastructure and the actual sales they are generating from it. Just for a little context, that gap is actually wider than the diversions we saw right before the 2001 dot-com collapse. But keep in mind, all of this massive corporate spending is happening against the backdrop of a very complex consumer base. Which leads us to part 4, the cautious consumer economy. Zooming out to the final piece of our macroeconomic puzzle here, we really have to look at the people who are actually buying the goods and services. Data from the Federal Advisory Council paints a real tale of two economies. On one side, affluent households are remaining incredibly resilient. They're continuing to spend and they're driving economic growth. But on the other side, middle to low income households are facing severe financial stress. They are tightening their belts and becoming incredibly selective and price sensitive with every dollar. And this consumer stress, it's being driven by stubborn, persistent inflation in the absolute necessities. We're talking about energy market volatility, the impact of new tariffs, structural housing underinvestment, and rapidly rising insurance costs. These aren't just discretionary items you can easily cut from your budget, right? The Fed warns that these structural factors will likely keep inflation higher for a lot longer than everyone previously expected, which forces companies to absorb some of these costs and ultimately compresses their profit margins. Yet, despite all of these headwinds, despite the inflation, the cautious consumer, and that completely broken entry-level job market we talked about, there is a massively bright spot in the data. U.S. labor productivity has grown at an average pace of 2.8% since the start of 2023. That is more than double the rate of the previous decade. The economy is literally producing more output per hour worked at a rate we haven't seen in a really, really long time. So, I'm going to leave you with this provocative thought to take away from today's explainer. As AI completely rewires the labor market, absorbs entry-level tasks, empowers a totally new generation of solopreneurs, and causes capital expenditures to absolutely soar, are we finally entering a golden age of technology-driven productivity? Or, with that 46% gap between investment and revenue, is the harsh reality of this economy about to catch up with the hype? The data shows we are balancing on a knife's edge between a total workforce revolution and a massive capital hangover. Definitely keep an eye on those productivity numbers because they are going to tell us which way we fall.